Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1080A, and today's date is September 20th, 2016, and the title of the episode is The Central Bank is Preparing to Use Footnote 8 for the Economic Crisis. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Today I uploaded an interview with Charles Hugh Smith. You can go to the X22 Report Spotlight. You can see the interview there. Or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there. You can play it right there on the site. Or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there, and you can play it right on the site. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, today we look at the market, we look at gold, and it really hasn't gone anywhere. It's pretty flat today. But what we're seeing is that more and more of the private Western central bank countries, they are continually contracting, and the economies are not improving. Throughout Europe, we're seeing the same thing. In Canada, for the first time in history, the total private debt of the Canadian public has exceeded the total national gross domestic product, GDP. After reaching 100.7%. And we can see that this is happening to every single country, not just one country. It's happening to many of the countries where GDP is absolutely awful. It's shrinking. The debt of the people, it is continually increasing. And what we're seeing here in the United States is the same exact thing. The entire system is on the verge of imploding. When we look at real estate, we see that home builders, they're very confident. What does that really mean? It means absolutely nothing. Because when you look at the actual stats, we see that housing really has gone nowhere. It's flatlined. And it's dropping. Well, housing starts, they plunge by 5.8% month on month. This is the biggest drop in 5 months. Building permits, well, they slip by 0.4% month on month. And this is the second monthly drop in a row. And when you look below the surface, things look really bad. Rental unit permits drop to April lows. Single-family housing starts are the worst since October, and they're down year on year. And when we look at this, we see the situation is not getting better. It is getting worse. Remember when the Atlanta Fed came out and they said, well, we're looking at the third quarter here, and we think that the third quarter GDP is going to be around 3.6%. It's on pace to reach 3.6%. Might even go as high as 3.8%. Well, the Atlanta Fed just revised its numbers. They really looked at the real data and they saw, yeah, this is quite impossible. So we'll come out with something a little bit more believable. Would you believe 2.9%? Because that's the number they came out with right now. Which means they're going to revise this again. Even that's too high. Because remember, the other quarters, we're coming off of what, 0.7%, 1.1%? There's no way that the economy grew by 2.9%. Now, that doesn't mean the U.S. government central bankers aren't going to manipulate the statistics. It doesn't mean they're going to say, whoa, the people spend, they were out there, they were spending like crazy. Now, of course, when you hear spending, you think, oh, people went to the store, they bought goods. No, what that really means is they increased the spending in health care. That's included in GDP. And we know with Obamacare, premiums are skyrocketing. We can see that they can manipulate the inventory ratio in GDP. So they have ways of doing this, and they might make it look like the GDP maybe hit 1.9%, but that, again, is a manipulated number. So whatever they come out with, we know it's going to be manipulated. It's not going to be real. Because we can see with manufacturing, industrial production, retail, it's all contracting. How possibly could spending push GDP up? Because the everyday person, their spending habits, is 70% of GDP. So if stores are closing, retail is contraction, people are being laid off, manufacturing is declining, industrial production is declining, how possibly can they make us believe that the economy is doing well and GDP is fine? Well, they can't. It's completely impossible. We are getting signals that in the past have led to recessions. The U.S. profit recession, U.S. NIPA, margins peaked in the second quarter of 2014 and have been on declining path for the past 8 quarters. What does this mean? Well, falling margins typically lead corporations to cut back on hiring and investment. And we already know that this is happening because just a couple of reports ago, we talked about the CEOs and how 36% of them said, yes, we will be cutting back on payroll. The other 37% said, we're not going to do anything. We're going to keep it the way it is. Of course, when the market starts to decline, guess what's going to happen? They're going to be laying off people. The 12-month change in the Fed's labor market condition index has turned negative in August. On 5 out of the 7 occasions this happened over the last 40 years, it signaled the onset of a recession. When corporations cut back on hiring, it's a signal that we're heading towards a recession. Temp employment growth is below headline employment growth. This is another recessionary signal, which has happened in the past. Rising default rates. We see U.S. speculative default rates have risen to 5.7%. Over the past 30 years, they pushed meaningfully over 5% on only 4 occasions, 3 of which turned into a full default cycle and a recession. All of these things that we've seen in the past tell us that we're heading for a recession. And the thing is, the central bankers, they know this. They know what the real economy is doing. They know what their manipulation is doing, where they're keeping everyone in the illusion that the economy is doing well. They're keeping this illusion alive long enough to bring the system down and crash it. Now, they're doing this not so they're blamed. They're doing this so they can point the finger somewhere else. They know the economy is in a recession/depression right now. We are in one, no doubt about it. Even when we're in the recession of 2008, going into 2009, the government didn't acknowledge this until later on. We are in a recession, and when they go back in time, they're going to say, yes, the recession actually started most likely in the beginning of 2016. That's when we entered it. Now, we can see that they have many problems out there, like Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank, well, their derivative book, it's gigantic. And it looks like they might be cooking their derivatives book. They might be manipulating it to make it look like they're better off than they really are. But we can see right now, no matter how much they manipulate, no matter how much they make it look like they're doing much, much better, they're not. And when the derivative market goes, it's going to be a chain reaction. Bank after bank after bank. Italy's PM, they understand that Deutsche Bank, they have an unfixable problem. They know that there's going to be a major problem coming up. And the central bank, they already know that this is coming. They've been letting us know. They're prepared for it. And we know from past reports that we talked about how they came out and they said, okay, if the United States goes into some type of economic crisis, a recession, depression, maybe a collapse, we're going to start up QE again, maybe up to $4 trillion or more. Most likely it's going to be much, much more. They also talked about cashless society. Now, this is going to be phase one because they need more tools. They need more tools to pump up the economy, to take control of the economy. So they're going to have to crash it right now to convince the United States government and the people around the country that we need laws passed and we need to give more power to the central bank. This is where they are headed right now. And we're getting another indicator that, yes, this is exactly what they're prepared to do. We know they're getting ready for what is about to come. Because Yellen made a speech at Jackson Hole. It was widely reported. And she mentioned something in her report as she was speaking about Footnote 8, which is a mathematical formula that could put interest rates on autopilot. Now, the Fed hasn't yet followed the rule, but it's there. It's on the table. And Footnote 8 lays the groundwork for negative rates. I know the Fed has been talking about raising the interest rates, but they're really looking to go negative. And they can't just go negative. They need to do something before that. They need to raise the interest rates. And if they do raise the interest rates, just like during the Great Depression, they will bring down the economy. But they can't make it look like they did this. So when they raise interest rates, we know in the short period of time, the economy is going to look like it's doing a little bit better. And then what's going to happen is the system is going to start to slide. So they'll need some event to explain this away. So she mentioned this Footnote 8. And if they were following the rule today, this mathematical equation, the interest rates right now, the Fed rate would be down to negative 9%. So Footnote 8 is a warning. It's a warning letting us know that the Fed is making plans right now to bring down the economy, to take more control, to go to negative interest rates, to start QE. And if you thought 2008 and 2009 was bad, well, what's coming up is going to be even worse. It's going to be horrific. It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious. And the system's going to come down very, very quickly. Why do you think they implemented and installed the kill switches in the stock market, in the New York Stock Exchange, the BATS, the NASDAQ system? Because they needed a cutoff switch just to shut them down. And we can see right now that everything that they've been doing since 2008 has been preparing for this moment. They knew back then that this bailout, this illusionary system that they created, well, they only had a certain number of tools at that point. And they knew the number of tools that they had would bring them to right now to keep the illusion alive. They need more tools. They need more control to continue on with this economy to make it look like everything's going fine. So we are seeing phase one right now where they're about to bring down the system, which means that we are going to have a collapse of the system. Then they're going to pump it up again. They're going to force the people in Congress to give them more control. Because that's their ultimate agenda, control. And that's what they're doing right now. So everyone needs to be prepared and ready for what is about to happen. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.